We're live. So it worked this time. Oh my. I hope you guys come on over here. Oh, here we go. American Therapy First. What's up, Doc? All right, good. Yeah, I was doing another feed, and for whatever reason, it's so if you ever do these YouTube live things, these live streams, what they do is they say you're going live, and then it has this swirly thing, and then it says, boom, you're live, and you're ready to go. In the last feed I had, in the last stream, it was you're going live, and it was going around and around and around for like 5 minutes. So I had to get off of there and create a new stream. So I'm sorry for the confusion there. Hey guys, oh great, you're all coming on in. Excellent, great to see you guys. Happy 4th of July, happy Independence Day, right? Amazing stuff. I don't know how many of you guys were in the previous feed. If someone was, if you could be so kind as to maybe, if the feed is still live, I don't know what YouTube is doing here, but if you could go back and tell them to come on over to this feed, maybe, just cut and paste the hyperlink there, HTML to this feed. But yeah, we want everybody to come on in, enjoy 4th of July together. I thought we'd have a little fun. I wanted to open up the lines for you to ask some questions. Obviously, I wanted to talk about Trump's speech last night from Mount Rushmore. I thought, it was a trap. I mean, there's no way of putting it. It was pure 4D chess in its most beautiful form. So I want to talk about that, how Trump put the Democrats in a trap that I don't think they're going to be able to get their way out of come November. I think this election is pretty much done. Trump has set the stage for what this election is all about. It is now. It's a battle between two kinds of nationalism: a unifying civic nationalism and a balkanizing ethno-tribalist nationalism, or nationalisms in the plural. And I think we'll win hands down in November. I don't think it's going to be even close. Oh my, we're already seeing. Look at you guys. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much. Oh, I missed the names here, but thank you guys. Those little tips, appreciated. I'll buy some hamburgers today. That's what I'll do. Grab some hot dogs and so on. So I want to talk a bit about Trump's speech. And then if you have any kind of questions or anything like that you want to ask in live, please feel free as well. I'll do my best to try to get the feed goes up so fast. I don't have a moderator, so hopefully I'll be able to do it. Hey, our good British brothers across the pond, we're getting a lot of Independence Day well wishes from you guys. I've got British blood and real British now. On my father's side is English. My grandfather came over from London to the Philadelphia region. He was the first full-time R&D research and development fellow employed, I believe, in the United States for Roman Haas, a German company. So he came over from England. The Turleys and the Abbotts are my lineage. They're all still in the motherland there in England. And my mother's side is Irish. So I'm English and I'm Irish. And so I've got all this, Celtic, British blood in me. And one of the things that we always like to joke around is on July the 4th, the American side of the family would celebrate Independence Day. On July the 5th, our British side of the family would celebrate Good Riddance Day. So anyway, happy 4th of July to everyone, and a happy Good Riddance Day as well for July the 5th, right? Oh my, thanks everybody. It's great to see everyone here. All right. Let's talk a little bit about last night and that wonderful, wonderful speech at Mount Rushmore. Before we get into it, I want to say, if you're not familiar with it, we have a real exciting development in the life of this channel, life of Turley Talks. And that's the official launch of our Turley Talks podcasts. Now, I know a lot of you have requested over the years that you wanted the videos in a podcast form. It was easier for you to listen to and to kind of absorb and and the like, and to categorize and all that kind of stuff. Well, your wish is our command. We took care of it. I don't know how many of you saw Hannah Owens, who did the Turley Talks on the Ground Youth for Trump rally in Arizona. Did you see that? It's awesome. You should watch it. She interviews all the people, all these different people at a Trump rally, and it really brings you into the excitement. And I mean, keep in mind, this is something that Joe Biden couldn't even hope to be able to ginny up. Biden can't even fill a high school gymnasium, and that's not an exaggeration. All right. So watching that video, it's going to get you so excited. Well, Hannah Owens has been overseeing this podcast project of putting our podcasts together. So Hannah was busy. We set the date for its launch a week behind so that Hannah could go to Arizona for the Trump rally. She found an opportunity to be able to do it. And so we sent her out there, and the video was great. So you definitely want to check that out. It's just Turley Talks at the Youth for Trump rally in Arizona. And anyway, so we're a week behind, but now we've got these podcasts up. There's a link down below this video. Definitely go click the link, sign up on the podcast, start downloading them. And if you sign up, there's a little sign up sheet there. Your name is going to get entered into a contest. If you click on the link before July 8th, you start downloading your podcast and enter your name in there, you'll be entered to win one of our book bundles and a free Turley Talks Insiders Club membership for an entire year. Okay, so don't wait. And if you have friends who are big podcast listeners and are good nationalist, populist, traditionalists, please, if you'd be so kind, please forward the link over to them as well. It would really help us get those podcasts established. All right, gang, let's take a look at what we have here with the Mount Rushmore speech. Let me just check in with you guys a little bit. Biden could even fill a lemonade stand. Awesome. That's so true. Biden polls are laughable. Yeah, don't buy the polls. Don't buy the polls. I have to keep reminding you guys, we did this in 2016. This channel started November 1st, 2016. And it started by, I made a sustained argument. I did one video every single, they were horrible videos. I mean, the quality was just terrible and I was stuttering and muttering more than I normally do. But I made an argument on one video each day for 7 days leading up to November 8th that Trump was going to win. And one of the most important, and Brexit for our British listeners, Brexit, the Brexit coattails was huge for that prediction. I believe that the election here was going to be basically aftershocks. It would be resonances from the major shot heard around the world in Brexit on June 23rd, if I recall. I remember I could still, it's one of those things for those of us who are really into this stuff. There was these events where you always remember where you were when you found out about them, when you experienced them. I remember where I was on June 24th, 2016. I was in Atlanta, Georgia. And I think it was a Hyatt hotel at a conference, ACCS, Association for Classical Christian Schools. And the front lines, I'll never get seeing the front lines and the CNN shock when they had to announce that Britain had officially voted to leave the EU. And the theory that I had been drawing from comes from Sam Huntington and a number of others who have argued that the globalist world is basically breaking up. What happened to the Soviet Union in 1991 is happening to globalist structures all over the world, particularly the EU, and most particularly in Washington, D.C., but it can't happen fast enough in my view. But these structures are breaking up. We'll talk about that a little bit more today. And so if you're going to bet on who's going to win in the next election, the better bet is going to be on the one who's supporting that breakup and who wants to usher in more of a civic nationalism, where we once again reaffirm and restore our national sovereignty, our border security, our economic security, bringing our manufacturing jobs back home. Do we really want our pharmaceuticals, monolithically manufactured in Beijing? And we want to celebrate our traditions, our cultures, our customs, right? That is our inheritance and our identity. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly what happened last night. That's exactly what happened. That's what Nigel Farage, that was what he was leading in 2016. What he was able to follow up on again in the European elections in 2019. Am I right on that? 2018, 2019. So it's all become a blur now. And then, of course, Boris Johnson ran in on those coattails as well. I thought Trump was going to do the same thing in November 8, 2016. But there was also a very practical basis for our prediction of what how Trump was going to win. And that was, we drew from the something called the primary model. That's Helmut Norpoth, professor of politics at Stony Brook University. And it has the single best prediction record of any model or of any other predictor, because all other models and predictors use opinion polls to determine who's going to win. Helmut Norpoth uses elections, actual results, to determine who's going to win. And he puts it to the mercy of an algorithm that he put together. And basically the thesis is whoever wins the primaries are the national election in microcosm. Whoever wins the primaries goes on to actually win the election. The primaries, you could take primaries to the bank. Primaries are direct deposits. They're not opinion polls. They are actual elections. And when you line up Trump versus Biden based on actual election performance, they're not even close. And so that's why this primary model that's guessed, if I recall, the last 22 of the last 24, it guessed rightly 22 of the last 24 elections. So if you're not, don't want to add up your 4 years, that's going back to 1912. Okay, this model has predicted rightly who is going to win 22 of the last 24 elections. And this model gives President Trump a 91% chance at re-election. So don't listen to the opinion polls. The opinion polls are not, look, again, opinion polls, I like to focus on opinion polls if I think we're looking at a trend. So when the polls start moving in Trump's direction, which they will, we'll report on it and all that, but don't pay any attention. Mike Dukakis was, and I kid you not, you could go to the New York Times, look up New York Times, 1988, July, Dukakis, Bush, Herbert Walker Bush. Dukakis was leading Bush by 20 points this time before. So opinion polls are so fickle. Watch out for them. We try to find trajectories with them, and the trajectory we're looking at is the 91% chance of the polls moving in Trump's favor as we get closer to November. So don't worry about them. Trump has a 90% chance of winning this. So don't fret, please. Do not fret. Now, here's also something he did. Biden is in, Lonnie Christopher. Biden is in his basement. That's right. It's about 20 minutes away from here. I'm in Delaware. So yeah, he's pathetic. But anyway, all right. Maxwell didn't kill herself. Oh my, I haven't read the headlines on that one yet. Oh, she's got to be under 24/7 surveillance, doesn't she? Politics is downstream from culture. Partly true. Yes. And culture can come from politics. Just ask the Soviet Union, ask the Russians, where a small band of people took over and then changed the culture. So it works both ways. Yes, politics is downstream from culture 50% of the time. It's dialectic, but also culture can be radically affected by politics. Look at before the Supreme Court's Obergefell decision, there's a Obergefell, I still don't know if it's a hard G or soft G, a Obergefell decision that legalized gay marriage. Most states and most of the population was opposed to it. Every poll showed that. And every time it was put on a ballot, it generally got struck down. Even in California, Proposition 8, which they labeled Proposition Hate, right? Obergeville passes. The swamp gives its blessing on this stuff. And all of a sudden now everybody's for it. So you have to watch out. Culture can also find itself downstream from politics. It works both ways, and you want to take both of them seriously. You want to take culture very seriously, and you want to take politics. You don't want to go one or the other. If you go only the one, if you're only going culture, the politics will knock you down, man. They'll knock you down. Just ask Chop, ask Chaz. You know, if all you're doing is culture, the politics are going to come in and wipe you out. If all you're doing is politics, the culture, ironically, will eventually negate you and throw you away, like what happened with the Soviet Union when it fell in December 25th, 1991, or the Berlin Wall fell. The politics imploded because the culture radically changed, right? And the modernist structures started to unravel. And that's what's happening here. Make no mistake. That's how you have to understand what's going on in our world. So great observation. Let me, Chop was globalism. Absolutely. Respect, man, the 2-, right back to you, my friend. Let me just very briefly give you why I think Trump laid a trap for the left. And on cue, they took it. He's brilliant. If you think it through, what the left has been doing with our monuments has thus far been relatively, it's been relatively overlooked by the vast majority of the population. Because we have, as Jordan Peterson would say, we all operate with a low resolution map of reality. Okay, so we all operate with a map of our homes, a map of our neighborhoods, a map of our workplaces, you know, a map of our favorite restaurants, maybe a map of Fox News or whatever. We're not thinking about, you know, how does the air conditioning actually work? Right. We're not thinking about, you know, what kind of cement or what kind of foundation is holding this building up. There's all kinds of realities around us, right? As we found out with this whole coronavirus thing, there's all kinds of realities around us we never even think about. Okay. So when you're pulling down a monument, you know, across from City Hall in Baltimore, or a monument in, you know, Detroit, downtown Detroit, you know, nobody wants to walk in or something like that. Most Americans, well, while they don't like it, you know, they're going to overlook it because it's not like I'm going to Detroit and that's Detroit's business. That's Baltimore's business, right? Whatever it is, that's Houston's business. What happens what if you could get the left to start flipping out on massive national monuments that we all know and treasure? What if you could get the left to start calling Mount Rushmore racist? What if you could get the left to start calling July the 4th white supremacism? Right? The celebration of white supremacy. What if you could get them to actually say, yes, we should start considering knocking down the Lincoln Memorial? That's the trap I think Trump set for the left. What Trump did by bringing himself, and he's a lightning rod, bringing himself and placing himself under Mount Rushmore on July the 4th. He got 2 for 1 on that. He baited the left to start writing their stupid articles in the New York Times and bringing on their radical cultural Marxist professors from Princeton on CNN and MSNBC, all to unilaterally denounce, you know, Mount Rushmore, the 2 presidents that were slaveholders. And then I read how Teddy Roosevelt had disparaged Native Americans and how Lincoln originally wanted to send all Africans back to Africa and all this sort of stuff. So they start spraying their ideological graffiti on our monument. At the same time, you end up having the Democratic Party in a tweet actually accusing Trump of engaging in a form of celebration of white supremacism for being out at Mount Rushmore, and it's an insult to Native Americans because we stole their land from them. This was brilliant because now you've got the entire nation seeing what a bunch of radical nuts the Democrats have become. So this is something this is what Trump is doing. He is nationalizing the lunacy, placing it firmly in the pocket, as it were, of Joe Biden, and then has set up, and he did it in his speech. You know how great his speech was by how much the mainstream media hated it. Don't ever forget that. You know how great it was by how much the enemies of our nation hated it. The enemy of the American people. I love it. You got to love Trump. I mean, there's no one, the mainstream media is the enemy of the American people. So he set up the dialectic for the clash for November 3rd. It is the unifying vision of civic nationalism, where we're going to protect our borders, protect our workers, and protect our cultures, customs, and traditions, versus the balkanizing tendencies, the violences, and the radicalism of this ethno-nationalist tribalism that Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, is just a pawn of. It's a brilliant move on his part, and I think that's what we're seeing. I have a couple of excerpts here of his speech that I thought was just so good, and then we could develop this a little more if you want. Remember, I think in many ways the left is dead. That's been my thesis now for the last few years since we started the channel. The left is dead. They just don't know it yet. Their foundations have rotted out, and so it's just a matter of time before they unravel like the Soviet Union did, the communist left. And I think we're starting to see that with the rise of BLM and La Raza and all these other, again, these ethno-tribalistic, balkanizing tendencies, the social fission, where the Democratic Party is beginning to break up around all of these competing, well, we call it identity politics, but it's deeper than that. It's these competing identities, these competing ethnocentric nationalisms, and it's just not going to be able to hold itself together. This is how, listen, in contrast, listen to this. This is from the speech. We are the country of Andrew Jackson, Ulysses S. Grant, and Frederick Douglass. We are the land of Wild Bill Hickok and Buffalo Bill Cody. We are the nation that gave rise to the Wright brothers, the Tuskegee Airmen, Harriet Tubman, Clara Barton, Jesse Owens, George Patton, I've got that twice, General George Patton, the great Louis Armstrong, Alan Shepard, Elvis Presley, and Muhammad Ali. What a list, right? And only America could have produced them all, no other place. This is brilliant of Trump, because what we have to remember is we have competing here two different forms of nationalism. And we've talked about this a lot, right? And the two different forms of nationalism is the civic nationalism. That's what we saw win in Brexit. That's what we saw win in November 8th of 2016. That's what we're seeing winning all over in Europe. It's won in Russia. It's won in India. And civic nationalism sees the nation as a race. So we are the race of Americans. We're the race of the Brits, or the race of the Russians. We are the race of the Indians, whatever happens to be. Now, 90% of our nation states are polyethnic. 90% of our nation states are polyethnic. And so civic nationalism seeks to bring all these ethnicities together in the form of a new national race. And America has been pretty good with that. And that's what you're getting exactly here. This is why you could put, Elvis Presley and Muhammad Ali all in, one basket, because we're all Americans, right? That's the idea of the civic nationalism. We all are defined by our common borders that we protect. We're all defined by our common economy that we protect, economic nationalism. And we're all defined by our common culture, our macro national cultures, customs, and traditions that we protect, we don't destroy. So that's civic nationalism, and that is precisely what Donald Trump embodies. Over on the other side, you have the left breaking up into competing tribalisms. And that's the ethno-nationalist. It's smaller, it's more, it's minority based, it's enclave based, and it's radically, radically negative. It's radically negative. We have studies out. We should do just a video on this. We have studies out that show that proponents of civic nationalism exemplify a net positive when it comes to other cultures, customs, and traditions. So the studies show that if you love your nation, you love your culture, you love your custom, you fly your Union Jack, you fly your Stars and Stripes, you fly your nationalism, you tend to also love and appreciate other nations and cultures and traditions. So, I embody this. So my wife is Japanese. My kids, who are so American, it's, beyond belief, but they love Japan. They find Japan very exotic and very exciting. They try to learn the language. We all try to learn the language and stumble over it. I need help from my European friends. You guys are amazing. Your ability, your bilingual, trilingual, polyglot capacities, absolutely amazing. Americans, sadly, when God was handing out talents to our nations, to Americans, he forgot to hand out the ability to learn another language. I know. I hear it all the time. But they absolutely love Japan. When I went to Verona, Italy, I was astonished. I was in heaven on earth. When I was in Venice, I was literally in the New Jerusalem. That's the way it felt. Before the whole pandemic, I was hoping to actually be able to go out to Russia and visit some of the holy sites in Russia. I can't wait to do that. When I was in Brazil, I actually went out and bought an espresso maker. Those things are expensive. Keep giving me your $5. Give me a little tips here. I need to pay for it, right? I came back from Brazil. If you don't know, Brazil, when they drink their coffee, they don't drink the. I forgot. I actually have a nice Americano in here. But they don't drink from the big cups. They have the little cups. They love their espressos. I love their espressos. When I go to the Brazilian, ambassador, Brazil, you know what I'm talking about. I've got assembly in my head. Embassy. I try to have all these thoughts, and sometimes they get jammed. The door gets jammed in there. But I went to the Brazilian embassy, and they first thing they did is they gave me wonderful espresso coffee to drink. I love bringing back these cultures. It's a net positive. If you're a nationalist in the civic sense, you love nations and cultures and customs and traditions precisely because you love your own. You secure your borders as a nationalist, not because you hate the people on the other side of the border. It's for the same reason that you lock your doors at night. It's not because you hate the people on the outside. It's because you love the people on the inside. However, what we're finding with ethno-tribalist nationalists, it's a net negative. They are very hateful and distrustful of the other. So this is fascinating. Civic nationalists like Trump, ironically, are the ones who have a net positive for other cultures, for other customs. Trump loves other nations. Okay. What we're finding is if you go the way of the BLM movement and La Raza and so forth, what you're doing is you're actually buying into an ethno-tribalist nationalism that is motivated more by a hatred of the other. And that's why we're seeing our monuments fall. And so that's what Trump is setting up. Trump is setting, and you see that in his speech, this amazing unity that the nation is a race. It brings different ethnicities together to create one people, right? One American people defined by common borders, common economy, common cultures, customs, and traditions, versus this balkanized conception where everything is racist, everything is bigoted, and everything needs to be knocked down because of my sensibilities, and you need to affirm me and my race. But the moment you affirm your ethnicity, your race, if you're white, well, then you're a racist. So nobody wants this anymore. Nobody wants us. And Trump, in his Mount Rushmore speech, brilliantly brought that to the fore for everybody to see. I have another excerpt here. Let me see. Listen to how he ended the speech. This is so beautiful. Uplifted by the titans of Mount Rushmore, we will find unity that no one expected. We will make strides that no one thought possible. This country will be everything that our citizens have hoped for so many years, and that our enemies fear, because we will never forget that the freedom, the American freedom, exists for American greatness. American freedom exists for American greatness. And that's what we have, American greatness. Centuries from now, our legacy will be the cities we built, the champions we forged, the good that we did, and the monuments we created to inspire us all. My fellow citizens, America's destiny is in our sights. America's heroes are embedded in our hearts. America's future is in our hands. And ladies and gentlemen, the best is yet to come. Biden cannot give that speech. Biden can't give that speech in front of a crowd that hates, in front of a crowd that wants to tear down and destroy. So this was a brilliant move by Trump, in my opinion. Absolutely brilliant move. All right, let's see. What do you guys got for me here? Anything? It's going so fast. Let me see if I can catch up here. CNN Independence. Yeah, CNN. CNN. The Clown News Network. I mean, there's never, ever been a funnier, more foolish network. At least MSNBC admits it. And MSNBC is never going to host, not to my knowledge at least, never going to host a presidential debate. I mean, maybe they'll host a Democratic, a primary, but they're not going to host a presidential debate. They're so pathetically shills for all things leftist. CNN still tries to put on the face that they're a reputable news network. They actually still try to do that with their evening lineup too, with Lemon and Cuomo. And I don't know how they do it. They're not fooling anyone. Their ratings are abysmal. And in contrast to Tucker, right? Tucker Carlson, just last week, the ratings came out for second quarter, sorry. And he is the highest, as I'm sure you all know now, the highest rated show in the history of cable news. Nearly 5 million nightly viewers. That's a very powerful army. It's very, very strong. Wonderful stuff. Biden 3030. There you go. I love it. I'm trying. Somebody wants me to read super chats, and they're going by so fast. I'm sorry. I might be able to slow it down, right? But I don't. I'll have to figure that out later. Tucker is the man. Tucker is the man. Tucker's the de facto leader of the Republican Party in the media right now. Rush will always be for me. I met Rush 25 years ago when my friends and I went and saw one of the filmings of his TV show, when he had his TV show. Rush is amazing. I'm doing this today because of Rush. He's influenced me in more ways than I can imagine. But right now, and he's doing great. And think about it. Rush has been dominant for 30 years, for over 30 years. He started in 1988. For over 30 years, 32 years. I think this August would be 32 years. So he's always wonderful. But there's something so profound about Tucker Carlson and the way he has been able to cut through all the nonsense and the way he's been able to hold feckless Republicans to account for their insanity. You have to understand, Republicans in the swamp still believe the Washington Post. They really do. They believe they believe the New York Times. They think these outlets still have the kind of power they had in the 70s and 80s. They don't. We're able to get more views than Don Lemon gets. And I've got a $100 camcorder, okay, a webcam. I mean, give me a break. So, no, things have changed on that. Anyway, yeah, I think Tucker. I think Tucker is excellent. He's doing amazing stuff. All right, let's see what else are we doing here. Yeah, Tucker 2024. People are talking about it. He is very articulate. Tucker Candace Owens 2024. See, that's when you know we've made it. When the network society, that's what scholars call it. When the dark web, the intellectual dark web, when the broadcasting side of things, I mean, Trump in a sense, being a TV celebrity with The Apprentice, broke ground on this. But when those who eat, sleep, and drink this stuff who are really trying to understand it at the deepest level, both philosophically as well practically, I mean, if we start launching up into the stratosphere of that kind of presidential politics and the like successfully, that's amazing. I mean, that's going to be great. I couldn't be more excited about this. Yes, rhinos are dumb, but rhinos are just they're part of the swamp, right? Republican in name only, or I like Diablo, right? Democrat in all but label, I think. So rhinos are just part of the swamp. There's no difference between them and Nancy Pelosi. That's why this is what Trump was able to do by bringing in nationalism front and center, civic nationalism, and the defense of our borders, our economy, and our culture. What Trump was able to do was he was able to expose the fact that George W. Bush, Jeb Bush, all these guys have more in common with Nancy Pelosi than they do with Pat Buchanan, than they do with Trump, than they do with us. And so he was able to launch a successful populist movement against the political class, against the ruling class. And he'll do it again. He's brilliant. He's had, again, no question, he's had a rough few months. Yeah. I mean, he's human. He's going to have a rough few months, no question. But he's obviously bouncing back, which he will. He's got a whole staff to help him to do it. So anyway, all right. VIP Ivanka, very good. Very, very good. All right. What else here? And then I'm going to have to go, guys. By the way, just I'll take advantage of this low. Make sure, please click on that link below. Subscribe to our podcast. We definitely want you guys to download our podcasts. If you saw Hannah Owens on our Youth for Trump rally, we were on the ground. Turley Talks was on the ground. We were told Hannah was great. Hannah told us that a lot of people, when she would bring the microphone to her, we got a press pass. I don't know if I shared that with you, but the Trump campaign has given our channel an official press pass to their events. So we're going to see what we could try to do over the next few months leading up to the election. See if we could do exactly what Hannah did. So if you go to our videos, I think I put it up a week ago today. So it would have been 7 days ago. And if you click on that link, that is going to make your day. It is Turley Talks at the Youth for Trump rally in Arizona. And so Hannah Owens is on the ground. She works for us. She's on the ground and she's got her microphone and she's asking all these questions. The people are amazing. They're going to make you laugh and smile. It's going to give you such a warmth in your heart. Hannah is the one who put these podcasts together. Hannah oversaw this whole podcast production, as well as another fellow by the name of Ezra. Have done a wonderful job of putting this together just for you. So please click on that link, start downloading those podcasts, and please send that link to others who love podcasts, and who don't do YouTube so much. And if you want them to really embrace nationalism, populism, and traditionalism and new conservative age rising, please send that over to them. It would mean the world to us. And if you download by July 8th, you get entered into a raffle, as it were, where one person's going to get a big, huge book bundle of my books, and you're going to get membership for Turley Talks Insiders Club for a year. Free membership. So make sure you click on that podcast link down below. We want to get our podcast. Let's give Ben Shapiro a run for his money, shall we? Let's see how many Turley Talks podcast downloads we can get. All right, what else are we doing here, guys, before we break here? Trump, 2020, 2024, 2028, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. What else? What else? What do we got? Any questions, gang? Maxwell arrest. We did a whole video on it. The arrest could not be more significant for bringing the swamp down. I think it's part of it. So the significance of the Maxwell arrest, bottom line, is that the Jeffrey Epstein case has now been reopened officially. It's going back to court. And everything that was supposed to come out with Jeffrey Epstein, but then suddenly got locked away in the district attorney's files, as it were, after he went and got himself perished. Those are all now open. So this is going to be gigantic, and everyone's talking about it. If you were close to Jeffrey Epstein right now, you're probably sweating. It will be very interesting to see what comes out. At the very least, it could be a level of public embarrassment that they won't be able to recover from, and that's good. Look, I don't wish anyone harm. I wish them repentance. I was a lib. I was a lefty in college. I wish them repentance. I wish them to turn. I'm sure we were all pretty lefty at one point in our lives. I know I've met a few of you. You're like, never. It's Pat Buchanan. I love Pat Buchanan's book. The first book I ever read of his, right from the beginning. But no, I grew up in a very liberal Connecticut and Northeast, and just thought of that as natural and normal. I found that I couldn't make sense of life in my early 20s as a liberal, as a leftist, particularly morally. I couldn't do it. And then as part of my Christian conversion, I suddenly realized that the world as seen by a leftist was impossible and totally impractical and illogical, immoral. I could keep going and going. And the world is seen through the eyes of the conservative, the traditionalist. Everything suddenly began to make sense. So that's what I hope for everyone. I hope to convert them. You win your enemy by making him your friend. At the very least, though, at least they're not going to be. A lot of Hollywood and political celebrities and kingmakers are not going to be anymore after this. So NBA loves to say, yeah, NBA, NFL. Yeah. So expect that. That's going to happen. Expect that, gang. Basically the left is dead. Okay. That's what you have to understand. The left is dead. There are scholars out there who are basically leftist scholars who recognize that liberalism is dead. Leftists and liberals don't know that yet. And they're kept afloat. They're kept going, even though the philosophical foundations of liberalism have died, which is modernity, the 18th century movement of modernity. 18th century gave birth to 19th century Marxism, right? Modernity, 18th century gave birth to Marxism. 19th century, which gave birth to our modern day liberalism and cultural Marxism and the like. What you have to understand is that modernity is dead. We're postmodern today. But liberalism stays alive because the structures that we live by today still are modern. So it's like this residue that stays alive. It's like this fungus that's attached itself to these modernist institutions that we have to live under, even although we are all postmodern in our sentiments. We all want to go back to nation, culture, custom, and tradition. Even BLM wants to go back to nation, culture, custom, and tradition, but in an ethno-tribalist sense, right? In a balkanized sense. Because they're racial determinists. If a racial determinist believes that if you and I are different races, then we are part of incompatible cultures. And so that's the tribalist theory of society, that races should be socially separate as much as possible, socially segregated as much as possible. That's what BLM is standing for. And our modern universities, where all this stuff was matriculating for years, in our modern cultural Marxist universities, I forget what study it was. National Review had it. We did a video on it, or a couple of videos on it, I think. on the survey of several hundred colleges, and they found that something like 50% of them had segregated dorms, racially segregated dorms. 60% of them had racially segregated graduation ceremonies, and 70% had racially segregated orientation ceremonies. So this is what you have to understand, is we're going back to segregation because the left is unraveling. And it's unraveling because the modernist structures upon which the left is based has died, because we're no longer modernists, which is modernism is just, when all said and done, it's the philosophical notion that there's a one-size-fits-all way of understanding the world that's legitimate for all people, times, and places. And that gives birth to a one-size-fits-all political and economic system. And in the 20th century, we had three options. We had Western liberalism, we had Soviet communism, and we had Nazi fascism. Nazi fascism gets knocked out in the war. Soviet communism collapses and December 25th, 1991. And astute scholars like Sam Huntington and another fellow, Stepan Mostrovich of Texas A&M, recognized Western liberalism is the next one to topple. So when you had someone like Francis Fukuyama saying, we've reached the end of history, we've reached the one true worldwide system that was going to be valid for all people's times and places. Otherwise, you're a savage, you're primitive, and blah, blah, blah. Other scholars were saying, no, it's just a matter of time before that falls as well. And then we break up into our original nationalisms, and we go back to tradition and culture and custom and the like. But we've got two outworks of that. We could go back to a civic nationalism and re-embrace our national sovereignty, our common borders, our economy and culture, or we balkanize and break up into tribalisms. And so that's the clash between Trump and Biden right there in a nutshell. It's very exciting in that sense, because the left is dead. You've got to get that. And every time you see the left screaming and yeah, we're winning and we're changing the names of this and that, you just have to understand they're dead and they just don't know it. This is their last gasp. So the question is just how much damage they do in the meantime before they're finally consigned to the oblivion they so deserve. So as I got away from myself. So leftism still lives in globalist, modernist institutions, and the NFL and the NBA are as globalist, modernist as you get. So they are going to go Libby. I mean, the Washington Redskins are going to change their name. There's nothing to stop that. Okay. You just have to let it see itself through. It's got to play itself out. But you can have the confidence in knowing it's like a chess game. Here's one of my favorite examples, illustrations of what's happening. In a chess game, you can often have like a Bobby Fischer or something. He knows he's set you up so that in the next 20 minutes, he's going to win. In the next, say, 16 moves or whatever, it's over. He set you up in a trap, and you're not going to be able to possibly get your way out of it. Okay, that's the left today. The left has been set up in a postmodern trap. Their modernity, their philosophical foundational modernity has died. It's rotted out. And so the left-wing fruits of that modernity, it's just a matter of time before it withers away and rots out as well. It stays alive in these modernist structures. But as what we're seeing with the EU and the UN and and the CDC and the World Health Organization, we're seeing those institutions begin to unravel as well. It takes time. They're colossal. It takes time. But you can be sure that they're all going to be breaking up and unraveling. And in their place, nationalism, populism, and traditionalism never been stronger, never been more fervent. Our foundation is solid. We're actually moving technically into now what's called a post-secular age. So we went from a modern age to a postmodern age, and now scholars are calling it a post-postmodern. I prefer the wing of scholars that calls it more a post-secular age, or you could even literally say pre-modern. We're going back to religion. We're in the biggest religious renewal the world has ever seen currently. We're going back to a time where church and state cooperate with one another. Just ask Russia, what's going on in Russia today. Absolutely astonishing. The Russian Orthodox Church has risen to a prominence not seen since the days of the czars. 30% of the population wants to see a return of the czar. And in fact, that's what happened with Putin. If you want to understand why Putin is going to be president for the next, let's see, how many more years does he have with it? So he's got 2 more terms after this. So that's 12 years. And then I think he has 4 more years for this term, I think. So he'll be president for the next 16 years. It's because Russians they're a presidential republic. And John Anderson and other Russian scholars have pointed out Russians love a strong man's stability in keeping their traditions, their culture, and their customs, protected and safe. And as long as they're free to be able to pursue the good as understood in very distinctly Russian Orthodox terms, they're fine. They don't care really who's at the helm, as it were, generally speaking. So there you go, guys. So yeah, you're going to get the NFL and NBA acting like idiots and morons, but they're defeated. It's just, the question is just simply when. When do we finally see them say, no mas, no mas, we want to celebrate nationalism, populism, and traditionalism along with you? It's just the question of when that's going to happen. Monarchy is in our DNA, Serge Vladimir. Yeah. There is Orthodox. I'm Orthodox. If you don't know, if you wonder why I know so much about the world of Byzantium and Orthodoxy, I'm a theologian and I'm also Orthodox Christian. But yeah, there are plenty of very prominent Russian Orthodox bishops who are arguing exactly that. Monarchy is in our blood. You could argue that at a universal level. Think about it. The first thing that kids learn about, the stories they read, are about kings and queens, right? When we read our Bibles, we're reading about King David. We're reading about the Messiah, the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. So in our Christian tradition, we certainly have that. I think in other traditions, I certainly have that as well. Indian tradition, that's for sure. And but the Russian tradition, man, that the gig between the Tsar and the Russian Orthodox Church, I mean, there was just nothing like it on earth. It was amazing. Don't believe the nonsense you read with these historical revisionists. Russian Orthodoxy and Tsardom are an astonishing civilization that they gave birth to that kind of partnership. So yes, I see what you're talking about. All right, Trump 2020, defend blue state welfare system. Oh, defund. Sorry, defund blue state welfare system. Yes, I know. Trump has already promised to do that to a certain extent with the executive order he signed, that if blue states do not protect their monuments, they will not be getting federal aid. So it'll be interesting to see there what happens with that. Let's see, guys. Sorry, it's going so fast. Okay. Someone said, I'd like to trust you, but I see the left-wing media is still brainwashing so many people. No, I gotcha. I get frustrated too. I don't think I'm all just sitting around. I mean, when I saw, no. Look, the left is dead. They just don't know it yet. And therefore they can cause a lot of trouble. And yes, therefore they can win a few elections along the way. Yes. And of course, Europe is having the problem with the Greens right now, right? The Greens I see as the populist version of the left. So the center left, center right has collapsed. So you've got the nationalist populist right, and then you've got the populist left. They're not nationalists. Of course, you've got the populist left, and they tend to be, in a sense, that's what's going on with BLM and with CHOP and Chaz and whatever you want to call it. So no question. I mean, they can cause a lot of problems in the meantime. What I'm trying to give you a frame of reference long term to see where things are moving. The left is rooted in modernity, and modernity is dead. No scholar worth their salt in any university would tell you modernity is alive and well. I've seen it with my college students, my high school students. Philosophical modernity is dead. But it continues in the form of our elites trying to export globalism. So it's still there. It still lingers in our institutions, in our global structures, in our economic structures, even although the sentiments, modernist sentiments that there is a one-size-fits-all system, political and economic system for all people's times and places. By the way, it's so fascinating because if you push any BLM proponent, you push any proponent of left-wing liberalism today, do you actually believe there's a one-size-fits-all political and economic system for all people's time and places? They will deny that in a heartbeat. They'll say, no way, no. Everyone has the right to do what they want. No. I'm a multiculturalist. They're tribalists. And yet they've at the same time smuggled in this Marxism that is thoroughly modernist. So they've got this postmodernist tribalism operating with a thoroughly modernist Marxism, and it's creating a mess. And that's why they're starting to unravel. Did you see? I just did the video the other day, so it should be up. It should be the last one, the one right before this. Black Lives Matter is already are beginning to take on what they're calling liberal white supremacists. They see liberal whites as every bit supremacist as Donald Trump. So you're going to start to see the left unravel. It's just a matter of time. They try to keep a single, they try to keep a common enemy in order to hold together this coalition of the oppressed that Herbert Marcuse had argued for in the 1960s in his concept of repressive tolerance, right? Where you tolerate anything, everything that's liberal, and you repress anything that is conservative. That's right. That's basically what we're seeing today. So Herbert Marcuse argued that you kept a coalition of otherwise, disjointed and completely incompatible interest groups, like say LGBT group and hardcore conservative Muslims. You hold that coalition together by having a common enemy. And the common enemy, of course, is your white male. And so that's why white supremacy and male patriarchy are blamed for every sin under the sun, right? What we're finding is that holds together only as long as the Marxism holds together. And the Marxism holds together only as strong as modernity is. And modernity's died and therefore is radically weak and is every day becoming weaker. And so the tribalist sentiments and competitions, what's called interminority racisms, start coming out. And it's inevitable. That's what's going to happen. So yes, I know they can cause a lot of problem. And no one is watching the media anymore. So don't give the media the credit it doesn't deserve. Nobody's watching CNN anymore. No one's watching MSNBC. Their ratings have never been more abysmal. Never. So don't worry about that. No one's reading the New York Times anymore. They're abysmal in terms of that. People are going to news they trust, and that's reflective of their values. They know there's no such thing as purely objective, untainted news. They know all news flows out of a worldview, and they want to get news that's consistent with their worldview, that understands the world they do. Now, sometimes challenging. We challenge each other here. When I say the left is dead, you come back, I don't believe that. That's good. That's exactly the kind of discussions we have. But we're having it within a common worldview that loves nation, culture, custom, and tradition. So that's where we are today. I wouldn't fret it at all. So, all right. What else? Comment on all vote by mail. I don't think the vote by mail is going to happen. I don't. I think, again, it's just a gimmick. It's trying to rouse. It's a Democratic gimmick that's trying to rouse voters, but it's not going anywhere. Most people don't buy it. They know it's corrupt. So I don't think you have to worry about that. I don't, at least at this point. Let's see. Who do you think will be Biden's running mate? Kamala Harris seems to be the one who everyone's talking about. She's a woman. He's already committed himself to a woman, and she's African American, so she'll probably do it. So, again, it's sad that we pick our running mates for these, these identity politics, categories, but nevertheless, that's where the Democrats are right now. That's why Trump is loving it. He's absolutely loving it. Green is the new red. That's right. Green is the new red. That's right. So thank you, Sheila. It's great. All right. Oh, she'll be Indian, not black. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Where do I have my doctorate? So people often ask that, where do I get my doctorate from? My doctorate is in New Testament and early Christianity from Durham University, across the pond, where they filmed a lot of Harry Potter. I love Durham. Durham's one of my favorite, call it a city. I guess you don't call it a city. It's more of it's a big town, I would say, but it is one of my favorite places on earth. And I haven't been back in years. I miss it. And when I did my study of New Testament early Christianity, my method and theory by which I examined the Apostle Paul particularly drew from cultural anthropology. And so I examined particularly the baptism and the Lord's Supper as rituals that had entailed an entire cosmology within them. It's actually in this book up here, Ritualized Revelation of the Messianic Age. That was my dissertation. Excuse my not tucking my pants in there, but that's this book. It's an expensive book. I think it's still a library edition, but this is where I got my doctorate from. And what I did is I ended up falling in love with the cultural analysis, because I used the cultural anthropology, what they'll call social anthropology in Britain. And I began to read, that's when I discovered what's called post-secular scholarship. It was more or less an outgrowth of the sociological literature that I was reading to better understand how society works and the like. And when I discovered post-secular scholarship, I was like, post-secular? What are you talking about? Things are getting more secular, aren't they? Things are getting worse and worse, aren't they? And that's when these scholars started convincing me, no, something else is brewing here. Something else is happening. And that's what got me excited about this whole notion of a new conservative age is rising. It was what these post-secular scholars were writing about. And a lot of them are not happy about it. It's not like it's wishful thinking or anything like that. So anyway, that's where I got my doctorate, and that's how it ended up sort of spilling into cultural analysis in general, and then political analysis in particular. And several years later, this channel was born. So, all right, guys, let's see. I see we've been going for a little more than an hour, and I do need to get back to the family. Yes, thank you for answering the question on every country has moments. Tucker Turley 2024. Tucker Turley 2024. Oh boy. I'll only end up embarrassing him in the worst kinds of ways, I'm sure. Let's see. What else? Oh, is Rachel Maddow. Rachel Maddow. Yeah, you saw the jobs report, right? 5 million jobs. Was it for the month of June, and Rachel Maddow said it was going to be a horrible report. Yeah, Rachel Maddow isn't a reporter. She's a left-wing activist. This is her religion. This is how she ends up finding meaning and purpose in life. I don't mean to be like Chris Cuomo trying to be a mind reader, but I don't think this is. You don't have to be Jordan Peterson in psychology to figure out that people like Chris Cuomo, even Cuomo admitted it, during the whole coronavirus thing, when he said he was thinking of quitting CNN. And interestingly enough, Don Lemon said something somewhat similar to this as well when he was at a conference, when he was asked a question, when he said he didn't think he was going to be at CNN much longer. I mean, these guys are activists. And as activists, they saw media as one of the primary modes, one of the most effective modes for that activism. There's actually a field of study that looks at how the media impacts political agendas. And it's actually technically referred to as agenda setting theory. You can actually look it up on Wikipedia. It's very interesting. Agenda setting theory argues that politicians do not set our political agenda. The media does. The media does. And they know that. So they go to their Ivy Leagues or their whatever university they go to, and they meet radical professors who tell them, journalism is where it's at. You want to set the agenda for where this nation goes, become a broadcaster, right? Become a journalist, right? In a sense, I'm kind of doing something similar to that, I guess. But now they're seeing their influence wane. I mean, Trump is president. He's going to it's 91% chance he's going to get reelected. And they're just seeing their influence wane. And it's just not working the way they thought. And so it's no wonder that someone like Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon would start saying, never mind. I'm out of here. I don't want to do this anymore. So, and I don't know. We'll have to see what with Maddow, whether she does or not, leaves or not. But she's a very troubled person. I mean, she's just a cheerleader for all things leftist liberal. All right, I'm seeing the suds of beer icons there. I think it is time for me to begin to partake of some celebratory cheer here. Regarding church and social agenda. Regarding church and social agenda, I didn't catch the question. There's somebody asked a question about the big thing is what's the role of the church in setting the agenda, the social agenda, or when is it coming back? Yeah, I'm with you. The American church, the British church, the Western European church in general, as I understand it, is very weak right now. It got really hurt during the modern age, the period of modernity. But because of the massive religious renewal that's going on right now, that does not get reported on by Pew or CNN or any of these other left-wing shills. This massive religious renewal that's going on will catch up, and I think will create a church that's going to be far more engaged in redeeming culture. Just look at what's happened in Russia. Now, again, Russia has the Russian Orthodox tradition, which has always been very, very organized in terms of how it's been able to impact the whole of the nation of Russia. America is more disestablished, so it's more localized, more state-oriented. Texas church is very different than Massachusetts church, for example, as it were. So it's going to take some time for the church to get back into things. The Anglican church has been completely overwhelmed by politically correct shills, as you know, with Pope Francis and the Catholic Church. So it's going to take some time for these institutions to catch up where the rest of us are. Italy's facing this now. They're more in line with Matteo Salvini than they are with their own bishops. The bishops are all left-wing Marxist shills at this point. So that's fine. I mean, we've had the church do stuff like that before. The church has been behind the times in a funny way, right? It's been behind the times in when the world is becoming more conservative, and it wants to be more progressive. So I'd give it some time. Live out your faith. I've been a teacher in classical Christian schools now for almost 20 years. Live out your faith. Faithfully, I know there are some public schools in the South that are good, in terms of spiritual values and the like. I know there's plenty of prayer still in public schools, but think about it. I mean, maybe take your kids out of those public schools, start homeschooling, put them in classical schools. Go to the Association of Classical Christian Schools website, see if there's a school near you. Make sure you're living out intentional faith. The Amish, to me, are great examples of this. Not that I would be Amish. I like my mechanics too much, but they really do live out a very communal, very close, neighborly, as it were, Christian vision of life, where local areas are impacted geographically. I mean, just looking at the landscape of Amish settlements, they're beautiful. They're lovely. Lancaster's beautiful, right? So just live out that faith faithfully. Remember, Trump won in states that have, I forgot what it was, 10 or 12% higher fertility rate than the states that Hillary won in. We're having babies, and secular liberals are not. And so we'll be okay. It just takes time. It does. It takes time, but we'll be okay. If you want to see what to expect to happen, I think in the United States, just in the next 10 to 20 years, look at what's happened in India. India is recovering its Hindu nationalism, its Hindu culture, its Hindu customs. It never lost them at the local level, but it did lose them at the political level for decades. And then the Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP party, rose up from the mass localities that were having lots and lots of children and were Hindu nationalists, Hindu conservatives. They formed a Hindu nationalist platform, and they have now won back-to-back the biggest landslide Democratic victories in democracy history. So that's what you can expect to happen more here in the States and in Europe too, Western Europe. It's going to take longer in Western Europe. Just the church really got hit hard by modernity. But again, just look at what happened to Eastern Europe and Russia. I mean, you had a thoroughly atheistic regime trying to kill for decades faith, and now faith is stronger than ever in many respects. All right, gang. Yeah, we got to fix the schools. That's right. And that's another one. A book back there. Do I have it here? I might have it here. I got a book back there. The Coming Rise of Christian Education. And it is with the baby boom, the nationalist Christian baby boom that's going on. We're seeing Christian education grow to heights not seen yet. Before I go, let me encourage you one final time. Please click on that link below and join our podcast, our official podcast launch. You could start listening to the podcast, and please share that hyperlink, the HTML, with anyone that you know who likes podcasts, who will be enriched with daily excursions in nationalism, populism, and traditionalism, and the inevitable rise of a conservative age in the midst of all the nonsense we get spewed out from the mouths of our left-wing cultural Marxist media. Make sure you sign up. Start downloading your podcast, and if you do it by July 8th, you'll be entered in to get a bunch of my books, a whole book bundle, as well as you get a membership into our Turley Talks Insiders Club for a whole year. So make sure you do that. It'll be great to have you. And like I said, let's give Ben Shapiro a little run for his money, right? He probably has 1 million podcast subscribers. Come on, we can do at least 10,000. Let's give him a run for his money. All right. God bless you guys. Hey, wonderful Independence Day to everyone. Love chatting with you. Hey, oh God, Emperor Trump. That's right. Have a wonderful 4th. To my British brothers, have a wonderful 5th of July. Good riddance day. Right. So hey gang, seriously, we're in good shape. All right. I know things are rough out there often, but we're in good shape. Stay confident. We are confident conservatives. Very important thing to always keep that in mind. I read a business book of late that said the best business, the most successful businesses are realists when it comes to what's going on, right? So they can be very pessimistic about, we're not going to be able to balance our books this month or whatever it is. They are realists, but they are perpetual optimists that they will meet their goals and they will explode and they will be an amazing company. So that's the key this author was making. That's the key to success. We've got to be realistic about what's going on now, but we've always got to be optimistic and confident that we are going to win in the end. If we've got that, we're going to beat these negative, hating, ugly Racist radicals, no problem. You don't even have to. Nationalist, populist, traditionalism wins every single time. You don't have to worry about it, all right? So let's stay strong. Let's encourage one another. Stay positive. And don't forget, click on that podcast link. Love to have you listening to the podcast as well. All right, everyone. God bless. Happy Independence Day, 4th of July. Take care now. We'll see you.